say you're not involved. Don't try to convince yourself that these problems don't affect you at all. Because now it's Lebanon, Azania, Grenada. How many more? Tell me now, how many more? Don't you stand on the sidelines and watch your children go off to war. Don't stand back and wait for this violence to come to your door. Because now it's Chile, Guatemala, El Salvador. How many more? Tell me now. How
Please welcome to the Northeast Political Prisoner Coalition podcast. This is U.S. Political Prisoners and You. I got my co-host today coming on, and this is my beloved brother Hargrave of GTW, my fellow combatant. What's going on, brother? Peace and love.
Peace and love, respect, man. Happy pre-Juneteenth to you, brother.
Absolutely. Before we go into the whole concept of Juneteenth, I just want to get into a number of things that's been going on this week, because it's been an eventful week in terms of recognizing people of African descent who are no longer with us physically, but yet their impact is still with us. And that's Tupac Shakur. He just had a birthday. So when I think about him, I think about the numerous contradictions that he had, but yet and still he was instrumental in identifying social ills in our community and to our people, and he took his position the way he did, and he allowed us to reflect deeply on what was happening and the fact that it need to be taken seriously. Sekou Dinga, his birthday was just the other day, and it made me think about him deeply. He was Tupac's teacher. He was also my teacher. He taught more than just speaking about lessons. He demonstrated what needed to be done regarding our liberation struggle. He was a member of the Black Panther Party. He was a member of the Black Liberation Army. And, that idea to be like Sekou is serious. It means that you are committed to that idea, that you are willing to put it all on the line for your people. So tomorrow is Juneteenth, right? And before we start talking about Juneteenth, I think we have to get into the history of it, and which is very important, because every time an historical moment comes, it should be a time where you reflect on what it is and why it's an important. So Juneteenth is a federal holiday in the United States. It is celebrated annually on June 19th to commemorate the ending of slavery in the United States. The holiday's name, first used in the 1890s, is a portmanteau of the words June and 19th, referring to June 19th, 1865, the day when Major General Gordon Granger ordered the final enforcement of the Emancipation Proclamation in Texas at the end of the American Civil War. In the Civil War period, slavery came to an end in various areas of the United States at different times. Many enslaved Southerners escaped, demanded wages, stopped work, or took up arms against the Confederacy of Slave States. In January 1865, Congress finally proposed the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution for the national abolition of slavery. By June 1865, almost all enslaved persons had been freed by the victorious Union Army or by state abolition laws. When the National Abolition Amendment was ratified in December, the remaining enslaved people in Delaware and in Kentucky were free. Early Juneteenth celebrations date back to 1866, at first involving church-centered community gatherings in Texas. They spread across the South among newly freed African Americans and their descendants, and became more commercialized in the 1920s and 1930s, often centering on a food festival. Participants in the Great Migration brought these celebrations to the rest of the country. During the civil rights movement of the 1960s, these celebrations were eclipsed by the nonviolent demonstration to achieve civil rights. but grew in popularity again in the 1970s with a focus on African American freedom and African American arts, beginning with Texas by proclamation in 1938, and by legislation in 1979. Every U.S. state and the District of Columbia has formally recognized the holiday in some way. Juneteenth is also celebrated by the Mascogos, descendants of black Seminoles who escaped from slavery in 1852 and settled in Coahuila, Mexico. The day was recognized as a federal holiday in 2021 when the 17th U.S. Congress enacted and President Joe Biden signed the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act into law. So that's a bit about Juneteenth, is historical reference and timeline of what was happening as it was recognized. So, brother, what's your earliest participation in Juneteenth celebrations, and what impact did it have on you?
Well, that's a good question. My earliest recollection of celebrating Juneteenth, it's hard to say. It's been many years. I really can't say because I've always been someone that always was one of the lead persons. I guess it's just in my DNA. It was pro-black, Black Solidarity Day. I remember going to school and knowing about Black Solidarity Day, but not really understanding it totally. And we on our way to school, and people said today's Black Solidarity Day. I said, "Oh, okay." So that meant we wasn't going to school. We skipped school. So I say that to say, when anything was black, even if my parents wasn't okay for us to miss school, I took it upon myself to miss school. So my tendency has always been to get to go towards whatever was the black movement. So I really can't answer that question.
No problem.
All I know is I've always focused, and it's still to this day, on what's black, and I hope to say that my kids do the same too, for the most part.
I think with me, because whatever question I'm asking you, because you know how we do, we talk uh, on this platform, but we also have a relationship politically and personally in terms of our liberation struggle. So, this is the same way in which it should be conducted, because this is about, presenting an idea, developing a clear and sharp understanding of idea, and relating that to our political prisoners. I think with me, my earliest celebration of Juneteenth is probably really recently, because just like I recognized the Black Solidarity Day, and Juneteenth was more recent. And I guess seeing demonstrations, seeing the December 12th movement have their annual celebration of Juneteenth, and locking down the community, and in that particular area, and having various cultural expressions. I think that was when I understood that it was something that it was serious, and I seen that things were being shut down. It was a national holiday, and that means that business as usual would not be operating. But when I actually started learning more about it, and having those discussions with other people who were concerned about the current conditions of our people, then I started seeing it a bit more seriously, and realizing that why during this time you had to reflect on its impact. And when I say its impact, I'm talking about the enslavement of people of African descent. What was it immediately its impact on your family? Now, when I look at my grandmother being 92, and her great grandmother being so-called free when she was 17, I said, like, wow, slavery had immediate impact on my family. And my grandmother, she had a third grade education, being in Virginia, and that being a serious a place in terms of slavery. You see that those conditions affected the outcome of my family. So when you're talking about this moment, Juneteenth, and you have to talk about how slavery impacted your family and what should come out of it, right? When we deal with celebrations, we should really focus more on what does it mean to commemorate something. I think that celebration and commemoration have two different meanings, right? Celebration, you come together, you have food, you dance, you sing, you reminisce on certain times. But commemoration is like we remember this moment, and we're gonna use this to make conditions amongst our people better. When you think about Juneteenth, how do you think that commemorating Juneteenth should be utilized in terms of our liberation struggle?
Well, I think it that depends on the person. I just think as long as is or the group, as long as it's being um, commemorated or celebrated, either or, like you stated a few minutes ago. As long as people don't look at it like a lot of people like in my I'm a local 3 electrician and we have contracts. And one of the things that I have been gun ho on about on changing is the concept and some of the acceptability of my racist, sexist local. And I say that because they show time and again both a propensity for both. And we just had a contract ratification. And one of the things that we really pushed for was to get Juneteenth as a holiday. We put cards out there. So we had over just about maybe almost under 200 people sign the cards and supported Juneteenth being a holiday. And it wasn't passed. And that's the second time we have a 3-year contract. So my thing is, I say that because a lot of my fellow brothers and sisters, they won't take off that day. And that's the shame of it. Is the only way you could take it off is if it's a holiday, that it doesn't mean enough to you just to take it off. I mean, because a lot of times you can't, I think the biggest contribution that person can give is when it hurts. And what I mean when I say that is it's all right to give a contribution, maybe a monetary contribution if people's asking for, and out of your surplus. But when you don't really have it and you see that they need it and you know it's going to set you back or it's going to sting a little bit, then you give it up. And I say that with the days when you take off that day. Our ancestors have sacrificed so much for us. Okay. That's why we do libation, because we believe in them. We bring them into our realm. We want them to know that they're all wise and that we respect them, you know. And so, with that in mind, I think that we have to look at what they were thinking about. All the stories that we heard that could be substantiated from their pain and their suffering. And at least we could do, it says, all right, great, 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 great auntie or granddad or what have you, that I understand. And out of ode to y'all, I'm going to take this day, you know. So I think it's just as long as they're celebrated and what have you, that's important because, like you said, I mean, some people, you know, it'd be a festive occasion. They'll celebrate it in a joyous surrounding. And some people may be more matter of factly, it may be more solemn, it may be more on a serious note. But just as long as they celebrate it, regardless, I mean, that's the least that we could do. And it's important because the more we get away from Black Solidarity Day, the more we get away from remembering our Malcolm or Marcus Messiah Garvey or Dr. King or Juneteenth, even though Juneteenth is incorrect in what people believe. They believe that it was in Galveston's text and June 19 in 1865 that all African Americans were actually free. When you brought out of a point that was brought up in January of that year, but it wasn't ratified to December 6th of 1865. So in actuality, we celebrate Juneteenth as the culmination and conclusion of slavery as we know it, but it wasn't really passed into law to December 6th, 1865. And by celebrating it, we educate ourselves and we keep unearthing things that we did not know. So just as long as you commemorate it, celebrate it, honor it, respect it, and speak about it is the most important thing I think we could do as descendant of enslaved Africans.
I think that you know, as you said, you know, you people start from somewhere, but then there's people like me and you that come around, and you know, we struggle to raise their consciousness because I'm always using something, or at least I'm always trying to use something to use to get people to be more involved in our liberation struggle, because I think that that is how I really show honor to the people who made sacrifices, people like the Sekou Dingas and the Malcolm X's.
Yeah.
And who had political clarity, right? We understand that everything is politics. Everything is about your relationship to power. What will change your relationship to food, the access to food, clothing, and shelter? How would you deal with that? You know, and so when Juneteenth come up, you know, it's a time where you start thinking about reparations, right? And you start thinking about you know, our martyrs, our political prisoners. Then you start to say, you know, what am I doing about that? What organization am I supporting that's fighting for our reparation? What organization am I supporting or contributing to their work, who is fighting for the freedom of our political prisoners, our prisoner of war, our captured freedom fighters? Because when you talk about Juneteenth and you talk about the abolition of slavery, you're talking about people who stood up to that and who organized that, because of that abolitionist movement was a serious movement, and it was a movement that people were involved with because they knew that in order to change their reality, they had to be serious about it. I know that tomorrow there's going to be a program tomorrow that Granville T. Woods Association is going to be
Correct.
put together. So this program, just explain to us what it's going to be about and why it's important for people to attend, and even more information about it.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity. So, um, like I stated, we tried to get it passed in our contract. This is our second contract that it did getting passed. So this is the fourth year that it won't be passed. So I made a vow: rain, sleet, hail, or snow, Saturday, Sunday, don't matter. I will always be up at our union headquarters, which is at 158-11 Harry Van Arsdale Avenue, or Jewel Avenue for all the old heads in Flushing, Queens, and we'll be there at 8 in the morning to 10. The reason why we pick that time is that's when everybody start. They either start at 8:30, they have staggered starts, or 9 o'clock. And we be out there and we be talking truth to power for us Juneteenth. And we trying to encourage other people to understand the importance of us being here. So we say, wear your colors, bring your noise makers, your pots and your pans, and we have light refreshment. And we try to keep it 100% black. We do not patronize white stores or any, even with the refreshments, we don't get it from them. We get it the day before, and we try to stay in lockstep unto who we there for and who we're honoring. And we try to also, what has happened is a lot of the workers have complained to go being have to work. They're not local three electricians. They don't belong to our union. They belong to another union. I think it's 32 BJ. But if we get the holiday off, they get it as well. And they have voiced and they have said that the library, which is adjacent to the building, is closed. The bank is closed, and they're a little perplexed because they don't have that day off as well. So they told us last year that they will come out.
Oh, sorry for the interruption. He'll be back shortly. We had some minor technical difficulties. I allow him to come back on when he uh, resolves that situation. But I'll be with his brother tomorrow. I'll provide you with more information. 347-679-3936. Again, that's 347-679-3936. If you happen to be in New York City and you want to do something that's going to be about recognizing the importance and the power of Juneteenth, you know, that's a place to be with us. And this brother's coming back on, my brother Hargrave, my brother in the struggle, my fellow combatant. But anyway, tomorrow, um 8 o'clock in the morning, Juneteenth commemoration. This is about organized action. Hey brother, you back on?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, boom. I
Yeah,
guess
no
that was the
problem.
enemy. What, see, they can't.
Hey, you know, you can't underestimate the enemy. They always active 24 hours, 7 days a week, 355, I mean 65 days a year. They don't take no day off. But you was explaining about tomorrow and the location and the importance of it.
Yeah, yeah. The location is 158-11 Jewel Avenue, and all is welcome. because even though we're electrician, it's a human right. No matter you black or white, a lot of times white people say, well, that wasn't done to me. It was done. That wasn't done by me, but it was done by my ancestors as well. And shame on them. Well, when you don't participate, to me, you're okay in it. You're
Yeah,
complicit
you're an
in
accomplice.
the
You're an
fact that
accomplice.
that's right. You're saying it's okay because if it's not, do something about it. And for blacks that don't really want to do anything and doesn't have a conscience, I look at them because we know that it was two types of enslaved Africans. We had the field African and Negroes, and we had the house Negroes. I look at them as house Negroes because they don't want to get no dirt under their hand. They want to keep a squeaky clean reputation so they can get any crumbs that the masters allow them to get. And they may not look at it when they look at the salary or the totality of what their financial gain is for that year, but it's still crumbs because they don't control the outcome. And until you galvanize as one, you'll always be subservient to that. And if you okay with that, you can live your life with that, shame on you. Because at some point in time, you have to realize that everybody needs help and nobody got to where they were alone. And so I salute my ancestors. Hang them on the wall, name them all. They're plentiful and bountiful, and I salute them.
Yes, you made some important statements, and some people are comfortable in their oppression. There's this statement that say it could be worse, right? So it's like when you don't challenge that idea of it could be worse, then you don't put up that fight. You allow your conditions to be the way they are, and think in your mind that miraculously the conditions are just going to change. When Juneteenth happens, we have to look at the historical significance that that time meant, and all those who fought back, who stood up, and the serious work that they have done. And
Yeah.
that's why when Juneteenth comes, we have to look at ourselves and ask ourselves, what work we're going to be a part of. So, I'm honored to be with you tomorrow and participate in this work, because it's work that is necessary, right? When we talk about organized union, we're talking about the empowerment of the working class people, and I think that that needs to be supported and need to be appreciated. Other black organized workers need to know about this work, and if they're not doing anything where they're at, they need to be where you at and get in this particular work. At one point, did you decide that you were going to take a role of importance in Granville T. Woods Association?
Well, my mother has a way of saying, she has a lot of sayings. One of them is a common one. She says, necessity is the mother of invention. And they had a quote unquote black club within Local 3. And it was called the Lewis Howard Latimer Progressive Association. And even though he did great things, they do his name a disservice. And it was because they really wouldn't fight for us. They really wouldn't roll up their sleeve and talk truth to power and challenge him, regardless of where the results, where they ended up for fighting for it, so be it. So they took the safe road, and we realized that, what? It was like an almond coated club. Like almond is brown on the outside, but when you snap an almond in half and you look through its content, it's white through and through. And we felt like it was watered down club. So we wanted something that was more representative of us. That's why when we have our meeting, which is tonight, we have it the third Wednesday of each month. When we have our meeting tonight, we open up with prayer. We open up with libation. We open up with an oath to the ancestors. We do not forget our ancestors. We do not forget our blackness. Like James Brown said in the movement of the civil right, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. Or like Stokely Carmichael said, Black Power. And to talk about the unions for a minute, and the reason why it's important, because you got to understand why unions got started. Unions got started was a racist act for unions to get started. Because when the enslaved free labor that they were getting became free, and they realized that they could no longer demand that they stay, or it was illegal for them to leave and run and face the consequences. Well, who had all the labor? Who did all the work? It was African Americans that did it. But white
Yeah,
people rallied around and they said, okay, listen, they're going to underbid our work. So as a protection, this is what they sold a bag of goods. So as a protection against that, what we're going to do is we're going to create a union, and we're only going to hire people like that look like us. And to this day, that way of thinking on a lot of their behalf still sounds familiar today. And that's why we have to take, people think that, hey, certain holidays is like, I've heard African Americans saying, why celebrate Martin Luther King? Why celebrate Juneteenth? And they have some pushback on that. But it's because of these things. It's because if you don't, they will continue to put more and more pressure on your neck. And so
Absolutely.
it's our responsibility, it's our duty to not only do that, but to teach our kids and be a pillar on our block. Every neighborhood has somebody there that can make that neighborhood stronger. You can seek them out, and it's a lot of times not hard to find them because they stand out.
Our self-determination is on trial all the time. If we are not fighting for our self-determination and making a strong stance and saying, we have the right to control our own destiny, then they'll let you know, they'll tell you that those are not political prisoners, those are terrorists, those are criminals, and they need to be dealt with accordingly, according to what the state say should be done with them. They would tell you that Malcolm is not who you say he is. He is what we tell you he is. They'll tell you that you shouldn't do the things that are in your best interest. We'll tell you what your best interests are. And then we have to be very clear about what it means to be self-determined and how important that is, because, politics is not entertainment. Politics is something that you have to take very seriously. It's a matter of life and death. That's why when we have our discussions during these times, we have to let our children know, because our children are watching us, that as they come of age and they're going to be in a position where they have to take some responsibility, that they need to take it seriously, and we have to be the model for them taking it seriously. You being a parent and you being another having another grandchild, how do you intend to teach them about the importance and the value of Juneteenth?
Well, as I stated, this past Saturday, the two of us was at the 36th commemoration of Juneteenth at Coney Island, which is significant because that's the Atlantic Ocean. That was the Middle Passage that brought our brothers and sisters to these harmful circumstances, and we felt like it was important to be there, and it wasn't the best weather in terms of what we consider to be the best weather. But I felt like it was the best weather because those that really believed that, the believe in the movement and the struggle was there. It wasn't deterred. They weren't deterred. And example of that, I did a lot of documentary that day, and it was a pleasure of meeting two sisters. One was in a wheelchair, one was in a pushing walker. The one that was in a wheelchair in the inclement weather, she was 94 years young, and her sister was 90 years young as well. And the one that was 90, her daughter was pushing her aunt in the wheelchair. So when you go and your family see, they already know what you stand for, but they see your level of commitment. When it's whether that they will rather check it, most people would rather check out and stay in the house. When your young children who are now adults, and now my grandchildren see that sticks with them, and it's in their DNA. It's just like everybody has cancer cells. It's certain things that triggers it, and these are going to be triggers as they get older because they're going to retain this information. And I shared with you, I said I had a pen of Malcolm, and you had a couple of pens on it yourself of luminaries in terms of our struggle. And I told you my 6-year-old granddaughter, whose name is Chloe, she said, "Is that who I think it is?" I said, "Who is it?" She said, "Malcolm X." I said, "Give me some." And she gave me 5. And this is what she knows. So when you teach them who these heroes and heroes are, and like I remember also my son, when he was doing a history class in grade school, I said, if they ask you who discovered America, do not put down Christopher Columbus. If they mark your paper wrong, you come back and you talk to me and we'll straighten it. Because this is stolen land, and the only people on here that's not immigrants is African American and indigenous man. So when you reinforce that at an early age, and you watch documentary. I don't watch a lot of TV. I watch sports. I watch the History Channel. I watch documentary. I watch basically documentary of our struggle because it's interesting to me. It's fascinating to me. It's necessary to me because you gave timeline from this from 1863 from the proclamation, Emancipation Proclamation to the mid um, 1900s. And through that timeline, it was such a thing called peonage, and it's spelled Peonage. I'm gonna spell it again. Peonage. And I would suggest that people look that up because that was a system that was created that was worse than enslavement because they wasn't giving up. They was when people get things free, they don't tend to want to get that up. So they found creative way to arrest us, over fine us, and make us either work for other people that they paid the government or they work for the government hard labor. They gave them time where at that time it could have been a $50 fine, which was a lot of money back then. And maybe you had 6 months of hard labor. And even when your 6 months was up and you remember, you let them know, they still at time kept you past that 6 month on frivolous charges. So we went through a lot. Reconstruction, even still now. They always having laws of how they protect this person, whether it be Jews, whether it be the gay community, the Asian community. And we're not saying that they shouldn't be protected. Let's be crystal clear on that. But when do they get the laws to protect us? Why, when things happen to us, it's not looked at upon the same way? And they may say, well, how do you get attacked when people attack gays? It's clear they say homophobic things or the Asians or whatever. Well, what about the NYPD or police anywhere when they attack us? How come they de-escalate, but they don't find the same passion and sympathy and empathy when it comes to dealing with us? Why do they create hostile environment? So by me showing this to my children and my grandkids and explaining that and reinforcing, they have no other alternative to understand. Now, the decision they make is not because they weren't informed. So that's how I work with them and keep them informed. And I like the way they are going. My adult children, the way they grow up, their consciousness. You see them at a lot of fairs, and you'll probably see them tomorrow too.
Man, I'm inspired by what you're doing as a parent. I'm inspired by what you're doing as a grandparent, and I'm aspiring to be as good as you are. So, brother, as we do, we're gonna end this episode, and I'm gonna see you in the street because I remind the viewers that this is not just about being here talking the talk. It's walking the walk, being in the community, letting people know about our political prisoners, letting people know we need to right our political prisoners, and doing the work in the spirit of our martyrs and our political prisoners. What's the call?
Free them all.
What's the call?
Free them all.
Peace and love, my brother.
Indians lived proud and free before the oppressor's slavery. Black people live proud and free. How many more? Tell me now. How many more? Don't you stand on the sidelines and say you're not involved. Don't try to convince yourself that these problems don't affect you at all. Because now it's Lebanon, Azania, Grenada. How many more? Tell me now. How many more? Don't you stand on the sidelines and watch your children go off to war. Don't stand back and wait for this violence